Hello, and welcome to a From the Rookery End live on Periscope and on Facebook. My name is Jon, and with me is Mike.
Good evening.
Mike, it is the day after the transfer window shut. We're going to have a chat about the whole window, not just yesterday. As Watford fans, this is our opinions, as every podcast we do.
Yep.
Is that you? This year you are what's the word?
Writing?
You're writing, yeah, for ESPNFC.com.
Tough word to get your head around.
Yeah, I know. Well, you know.
You can tell your audio.
Yeah. You are right for ESPNFC.com this year. And you did a review and you gave Watford a score out of 10
Yep.
for this transfer window.
Yep.
You gave it what out of 10?
I gave us a 7.
7. Why 7?
Which you thought was a little harsh, didn't you?
I personally gave it 8. Now, but why 7?
Because it felt like we still had quite a lot to do. I think there's a lot hinging on the signing of Pereira. I think he has been. I think it's very rare that there's something lacking so evidently and so clearly as that attacking midfield role. So I think there's a lot hinging on him. And the jury's out on a lot of players. We just don't know how they're going to work. So I think it's impossible to give a higher mark, because if you give it 8 or 9 and they don't work out, then you end up looking stupid. We still don't really. The squad looks a bit thin. Perhaps we haven't announced a full squad, have we? It's
No.
Is it 22?
It's 20. He says doing his maths over here. Yeah, it's 22 senior players plus the 3 under 21. So there are 25 what you would call first choice players, first team players that you can pick from. And
the fact that we were still trying to get Decore out of the door. That sounds a bit harsh, not out the door, but we're still trying to organise a loan deal for him at sort of 11 o'clock last night. And I think the fact that we were still trying to do business quite late for someone who is seen as a key signing, and that just left me a little bit...
Who said he was a key signing?
Well, all right, perhaps I did. But if you're going to speak with authority. Yeah. That's what I think. But we'd spoken to... Heath, for example, who watches Granada, who we got to know sort of when they were still part of the Watford family, the Pozzo family, and he had said that he's one of the best midfielders he'd ever seen. That was praise indeed, and I think Watford were very keen to get him, and we got him, and it just felt like he was going to be a great signing. And then all of a sudden he hasn't started the first couple of games, and we're trying to get rid of him. Again, that sounds harsh, not to get rid of him, but you know what I mean. And it didn't materialise, and it's just felt that. To give it, I think we did good business. I must say that in the piece I said I think we did excellent business. Anyone who's not pleased is probably going to be too hard to please. But I think there were still a few loose ends, too many loose ends perhaps for it to be higher than a 7. Worst answer I've ever given to any question you've given me, I think. But.
Well, I think it was slightly high. I think you're judging it in terms of will it work out in the end. But I think as a window over the period of time, it feels to me that we've strengthened. Have we strengthened as much as I want to? No, that's why it's not a 10. And what would be a 10? Would we have to sign Lionel Messi for it to be a 10?
No. So
what would be a 10?
Well, what I would say is, on the positive side, is that we did fill areas that we had to fill. We got wing-backs in who can do wing-backs. We got Kennedy on loan from Chelsea. We did get Pereira in midfield. We added defensively. We got another striker in. He did come out of left field, Akaka. So we did fill the areas that we wanted to fill. So it's, like I say, it sounded like 7's not a good mark. I think 7's a reasonable grade for something that there's no indication of how it's going to turn out. So yeah, I think I'm largely very positive.
I'm quite positive of the fact that we've got through that little bit without doing an impression of is it Len from Strictly saying number 7. Yeah. We talked about the transfer window on the podcast we did after the Arsenal game, and at the point Vidra hadn't definitely gone when we actually recorded it. By the time we published it, it sort of had been done. So the last couple of days, let's go for the outs. First of all, we saw Vidra go. Yep. Now we've learned it was 12.5 million. Brilliant. That's the business you want to be doing.
Yeah, I think that's great business. Yeah, I think there is the thing that sort of interested me recently over the last couple of days when talking about the transfer window is how supporters get excited about transfer fees coming in, and I think the days of that being important to Watford fans should have gone, because back in the day it would have been right. We've got 12 million in. It's either going to keep the club afloat or hopefully we can reinvest in someone else. Now it doesn't really matter. now all it really does is reaffirms the Pozzos as good businessmen. It makes no real material difference to how Watford are going to perform or who they're going to buy in the transfer market. So whilst, yes, getting 12.5 million is a great deal for Gino and the owners, I think it's important not to get too carried away because we're spending a lot as well. But so yeah, good bit of business. Like we said on the podcast on Saturday, sad to see him go because there's a lot of memories tied up in Matty Vidra, perhaps a lot of unrealised potential that I know for a fact a lot of Watford supporters were still hoping that they would see at Vicarage Road, and that's not going to happen now. But hand on heart, I wish him all the best and I hope he does well at Derby.
Next one to go was Sean Murray.
Yep.
Someone we've seen since he was a wee lad. Yeah. Saw him play for the under-18s and he came through, had that brilliant sort of half a season where he was shining light under Sean Dyche, and we kind of thought he was the one for the future. And it always felt to me like he would have been one for the future if the Pozzos hadn't turned up. You know, if that hadn't happened and Watford had continued to be the Watford of the early teens, and we would have seen so much more of him and he would have developed a lot quicker. But he's sort of gone off, but it feels right that he's gone to Swindon. Yeah,
for a day, and we'll get on to why. He was the last sort of element of the old Watford, if you like. He was perhaps Troy you could lump in on that, but he was the last sort of reminder of old school Watford. He was the last reminder of the travails, of the problems, of the issues that we used to have. Again, I'm pleased he's gone. He was never going to get into this squad. There've been rumours about his sort of commitment, perhaps, and his extracurricular activities. Some people have suggested that's why he perhaps didn't kick on as much when he because he made such a great debut, and everyone had high hopes. Man City were sniffing around him. Was it Liverpool at one stage as well? So there was obviously talent there. There was obviously excitement and interest in him. And for whatever reason it didn't happen, it's time for that boy to go and get his career started. I don't think any Watford fan will be unhappy he's gone, and I don't think any Watford fan will wish him anything other than the best.
Didn't look particularly happy in the photograph.
He didn't. It was good. I'm so pleased that we've got an ex-Watford player doing that, though.
Yeah.
Because I'm sick and tired of all the others. Usually, who was it? It was the guy who went from, was it Lescott? Not Lescott. I can't remember. Went to Everton. He looks so miserable.
Yeah.
It's just funny. Yeah, Aaron Lennon. And it's funny that we've got a Watford player doing that. I quite enjoyed that. Well done, Sean.
Yes. The other person who left on deadline day was Naom going. Sort of felt the right thing for him to do. He had a great start last season. Played against Crystal Palace, fell apart, and he never recaptured it. And almost like a fresh start was the best thing for him, rather than trying to make his way into that starting back three.
I blame myself. I spoke to Jim Daly of Palace Fan TV before the home game with Palace, and he said, "Who's the player to watch out for?" I said, "There's one you might not have heard of, and one that might quite surprise you. A guy called Alan Neom. He's our right wing back, and he's been brilliant defensively, and he's been terrorising people going forward. I think he might take you by surprise." He was terrible, and he didn't recover. So I take complete responsibility for that. Sorry, Alan. You've ended up in the Hawthorns instead of Vicarage Road. No one likes that.
Highest stadium in the country. Hope you're good at altitude, Al.
Yeah, well, we'll find out. But there's no denying he looked bereft of confidence. He was nowhere near the player that he was against for the first sort of little portion of the season, which is a real shame because he started like a steam train but he just fell off a cliff. And I think the way Amrabat's performed at right wing back has shown that someone can come in and do the job, and the fact that he was preferred over Neom to start with, and that he was even identified as being worth a gamble or an experiment, showed that he wasn't really in the plan. So yeah, it was time for him to move on. It will be fascinating to see how he does at West Brom. I don't think he was the sort of transfer deadline day signing that the Baggies were looking for, not the marquee name that they were hoping for. But it will be very, very interesting to see what a new club and a new start does for Neom. But hopefully he gives away loads of penalties against us.
Woo! And finally, last one out the door last night was Kiciania off to, again, play with Matty Vidra after his tweet to say goodbye to Matt, saying, "Good playing with you, they're not playing with you, good playing with you, not playing with you, they're not playing with you." Yeah. He is playing again.
Bizarre, isn't it? Again, not quite on the same level as Matty Vidra, because I think Akechi was probably always playing to his limit, without being disparaging to Akechi. I think we probably had seen the best of him. Frustrating in as much as he always looked like he had the beating of a man. We knew he had pace, but seemed to be always betwixt and between. I think he played a lot as a wing back and felt torn between his defensive duties and his attacking duties. I would have loved to see him take a man on, beat him and deliver a good cross. Or when in a good attacking position, don't be afraid to have a shot. I don't think we saw the attacking... we didn't get the fruits of his attacking labour. We didn't get enough from him. And I think with the players that we've come in, we can't afford to have someone who's not going to deliver for us. The Premier League's tough. You've got to make the most of your possession. And we weren't getting that with Akechianya. Would we have been a decent squad player? I wouldn't have been upset to see him stay. Absolutely.
We've got the space in the homegrown to keep him.
Yeah.
And it would, it feels like if you look at the depth chart, which you can see on our social media, or you will be able to see when we on the fromtherefereeing.com on the podcast page for this. Look, something like that. We had the space for him, but we have got, well, I don't know. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 wing backs. Seems to be enough, but I'd
like to think that the reason he's gone is not because he's not good enough. Yeah. We've moved on.
I'd love the idea that actually Akechi said, "Look, can I go? I want to kick on," and it was sort of maybe a little bit of him wanting to go and his agent sorting stuff out. But it was sort of, I think he was the saddest out of them all to see go.
Yeah, he'd been involved a lot. He'd been involved in most matchday squads. I think he has contributed to Watford, and so obviously he goes with our thanks. But I think now we've got better, and he didn't really deliver quite enough.
No, he did really well last year. I think he did adapt and did try and do new positions and work hard, but again, never turn himself into the number one man. He will always be the most important player in that goal that Troy scored against Leicester in the playoff final, according to Troy. So it was. I think for me, it was the saddest going. The three we got in. Yep. So we got 3 in since Saturday. Okaka.
Yeah.
Bizarre in many ways on Twitter with fans going, "He's rubbish." Well, you never seen him play for Watford with these players. In the same way, whenever they see someone who's brilliant and they go, "Oh, he's gonna be great," you've never seen him play in this country with those players. That's always, every time transfers happen, he's going to be the saviour. He's going to be absolute rubbish. I don't think he's been brought in to be number one. I think number 9 to be the number one pick. But he certainly, it doesn't feel as he's putting as much competition, let's say, for Troy and Igalo in terms of experienced players. But the great hope in terms of being that the man to push those two, maybe break up the band, will be Isaac's success. I think he's sort of the one that feels like it. But if anything, especially for this half of the season until the next transfer window happens, the fact that Okaka is going to be slightly senior and to score, I think he scored 17 goals last year in France. Yeah. That it isn't. He's not going to light the world alight. He might do. It doesn't feel like it. But he's a squad player. What
I like about him is that no one saw it coming. No. It was completely out of the blue, and that's very rare with these days, because usually there's a whisper somewhere along the line, and there wasn't at all at this stage. So it's quite nice to get that one out of the blue. A little bit disappointing that people sort of just had that knee-jerk reaction that you mentioned, but everyone's entitled to their opinion. He's another one who's played for Italy. Someone's pointed out that Diego Fabrini has also played for Italy, of course. But I think the most interesting thing about his signing is that it's a real indication as to the sort of striker, perhaps, that Mazzari likes. Big, tough, strong, and we've seen that in. You mentioned Isaac's success. He's obviously tough. He's built. He's a unit as well. So I think we've got an idea there of what he wants in his what he wants in his striker. So I think that is interesting from that point of view.
You say that was a surprise coming in.
And squad number 99 at Anderlecht. I love that we signed someone with that. It's good.
You say that he was a surprise coming in. I can believe it when you're seeing the return of Adrian Mariappa.
Hence my attire this evening. 2008 vintage in tribute to Adrian Mariappa. It's been in with the mothball since he left. And since his arrival, I've been able to get it back out. It's a bit itchy, actually. It hasn't been washed for ages, but I'll wear it for you, AD. Let's see what I'm willing to do. It's funny, when Crystal Palace released him, I sort of said to myself, we should go in for him, in the sort of way that you think, Watford should go for any player that you know is available. So to see him come back, I think it's great. And what I do like about it is that he's someone that we can hold on to. He's a bit of a, and this is a bit pathetic and a bit sad, but in this whole maelstrom of new faces, there's someone that we know, there's someone that Troy knows, there's someone that you can identify with immediately, someone that you know that's going to get the club another voice around the training grounds who will keep the sort of Watford ethos, if there is such a thing, still there in the training ground, and just sort of remind people and what it is to be Watford. So I'm quite glad to see him back. Apart from all the sentimental stuff, quite a defender, a really good player. And going back to the grade of the transfer window, what we've done, we've got backup in every position, and it's not strong, it's not weak backup. We're not worried now about who's going to fill the bench. We're not worried about if he gets suspended, if he gets injured. Whilst they might not be first choice or international or European standard in every position, it's quality now. And people will accuse us of being sentimental about Mariappa, but you speak to Crystal Palace fans, they were disappointed with the way he was treated and thought he was a better footballer than he got credit for, should have played more. And now he's back with us. We've got someone else we can utilise, and yeah, just adds extra strength. But it's great to see his smiling face. Leanne in the other room's happy as well, because he's a handsome devil as well, isn't he? Does he look more like a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle than Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain?
I don't know. I like to think about Mariappa, the signing Mariappa, is that we know, a younger lad, he had some time at a low division championship team and did all right. And now he's ready for the Premier League. Oh, hang on, it was us. And the final one of these young players who, again, people think they know a lot about because you see some YouTube clips because they're young players and they've got some nice highlight reels going on, is Kennedy. All for you WWE fans out there. Kennedy is on loan for the year. Another wing-back / midfielder.
Yep. A
bit more adaptable. Sort of the Aki of this season. It would be interesting to know, we've had a lot of young players come in for a very long time. Aki stepped up, and you'd hope that he will and step up again and be a really good, strong choice and competitor for those wing-backs.
He's an exciting one. I think there's a lot of buzz about him. Chelsea fans speak very, very highly of him. And yeah, it just goes back. It's just more quality. It'd be interesting to see how Jose Holebas reacts, because he sort of felt like he'd made that left wing-back spot his own. And I think he's got incrementally better, personally. I think even game on game this year, his defensive work seems to have improved, whilst he's also delivering that attacking threat. So I think he's doing great as a left wing back. But yeah, this Kennedy guy, I confess I hadn't seen him in action, but there's a lot of good noise about him. So you can't. Yeah, it's interesting to see. You just hope Matsari makes the right choice and gets the best out of these guys when they're not in the team, when they're not in the squad, keeps them ticking along, keeps them bubbling under, so that if something does happen, a yellow card, red card, suspension, injury, they can come straight in. Because what a joy that would be for a Watford team to have someone that just slots straight in. You know that they're up to speed. You know that they can play that position. You know that they're quality.
What I like about the Hodabas thing is that he clearly must have been a bit annoyed, let's say, at Aki last year. So knowing that he has to up his game and having someone really directly behind him, almost knowing it could be Groundhog Day again for him.
His passion on Saturday against Arsenal was something I really noticed. I enjoyed that. I just liked it. I'll never forget talking to Adam Leventhal a couple of years ago, and he said he feels like Watford aren't nasty enough. There aren't enough sort of bitey, snarly characters, and I think someone mentioned that on Twitter earlier as well. But I think Holebas is that. He's a tough nut. And I like the way that he showed his feelings on his sleeve on Saturday against Arsenal, where things weren't going great, and he didn't just moan, but he really rolled his sleeves up. So fascinating battle between Holebas and Kennedy, but I think that's a great signing and a coup for Watford.
We'll figure out how well they do by results that come out over the next few months. But I think the overall feeling is that is an improved squad. There's a lot of sentiment that left that you would have liked to have come around, but I also want to go now and look at this the overall what's happened in this transfer window, what's happened in and compare it to other transfer windows. We had a tweet from Graham Payne. Thank you, Graham, for getting in touch. Who sent us this picture, which is of a man with a blindfold on throwing darts at list of names. He said that's the Watford transfer policy starting to look like this. Discuss, Decore, Berghaus, Suarez, and he's starting to get the impression that we have no clue what we are doing when it comes to transfers. We're just guessing. And it is that high turnover because we did have 7 players who were 6 of whom were bought in the last year, one being Tommy Hoban, the other one, who have gone out on loan. They are all, apart from Suarez, young. Now, that loan thing, I think people are looking at going, you're buying players, but you don't like them, so you get rid of them. But it seems to me it's almost that development thing that we've talked about Watford. You're buying young players, we're not developing them, we're actually sending them out to Feyenoord, we're sending them out to Udinese, sending out to, Blackburn. Yeah, and they're getting proper...
Feyenoord, Udinese, Blackburn.
But the hope is actually they will come back stronger players because we can't afford to have players develop in the Watford squad.
Do you know what? I'm halfway in between. I mean, I think I understand exactly...
Betwixt and between.
Betwixt and between, yeah. I understand what Graham's saying there. I think to say that we're just guessing, and I know that's tongue-in-cheek, I know he doesn't mean we're literally guessing. I think that's unfair because we are keen to praise the Pozzos for their scouting network, and I think they do their due diligence on players. I don't think we're ever going to sign someone who we don't think is going to benefit the squad or prove to be, worst case scenario, financially beneficial for the club in the future. But I do have a concern about the whole loan thing, about players going out on loan for development. Because people are quick to have a go at Chelsea, who are basically stockpiling, and they have to send them out on loan because otherwise they've got too many players even to play in their under 23s, and there's not enough teams for them to play. So they're buying star players just so other people can't get them, and that's one thing. And I think the big clubs are guilty of that. I just think it's very rare that a player goes out on loan and then is successful for their parent club. And I was concerned that you go and think about it, and you guys think about it as well. And there are obviously instances of players going out on loan and coming back and being successful, but actually for their parent club, so going out on loan. And if we talk about Watford, Marvin Sordell did it and did well, and so on and so forth. So there are examples. It does happen, but how regularly? And because I just think if you've signed a professional footballer, it's rare that just a year there is going to make you perfect for us.
Isn't that part of the Pozzos gambling on the market and saying you can't just go and say, oh, we like him, but we'll leave it a year, and he's a great year at Feyenoord, and then all of a sudden he comes back and you have to pay through the roof for him.
But then you're doing what Chelsea do, and you're stockpiling, and I don't think that really is... We've got enough...
7 stockpiling?
No, but what you're saying is we'll buy them now because we're worried that they might be better or get nicked by someone else. And that doesn't really add to the squad, because all we're doing is, right, let's stick them over there, in effect, and hope they tick over while we concentrate on the guys that are good enough. And the thing that concerned me the most was I liked the look of Jerome Sinclair in pre-season. I thought he looked good, he looked quick, he looked direct, he looked a little bit more nimble. He's a bit more slight than Isaac's success, than Troy, the Niggy, and Akaka. And I thought he might offer us something different. So disappointed that he was trying to be loaned out, and how that's going to impact on him because it fell through. And Decore as well. It was like, well, we're trying to move these players on when I don't know. Something doesn't feel quite. I get it. In the premise of sending someone out to get better and come back is a solid one, and it's a sound one.
But with Sinclair, I know what you're saying. I don't think. But if you look at let's say a longer term, if this year he's come along, they've said you're not quite ready yet, lad, for the Premier League week in week out. We know that we're going to have. Let's say Dini and Igalo, 1 and 2 choices. Akaka is there to do... Oka,
if you like.
Oka, yeah.
Big Oka.
But success will be the fourth and the younger player that hopefully by December, especially in the second, and then into the second half of the season, he'll be then pushing to break up that partnership or add to that partnership. You can only do so many of those in a year.
Yeah.
So it feels like, actually, let's get rid of you, let's bring you back, because actually this time next year, Igalo's gone. Because at some point, when you keep getting offered 32 million, you got to say yes at some point or another. So then actually there's a space. At that point, success has moved up and his replacement. So then you need someone else knocking on the door. The question is, though, when you've got Jakubiak on a new 4-year contract, Olari, Peñaranda is going to be coming back next year, hopefully, and he is a big hope. Maybe then that's where Sinclair, the next one to knock on the door, to take over. I don't think you can have 3 or 4 players doing that.
I think, and I think I get it. I understand what we're trying to do, but it does feel... It feels a bit messy, I think, and I'm sure that the guys there know what they're doing. Of course,
messy or different?
No, it does feel a bit messy. I don't think it's different anymore because we're used to it. You know, under Zola we had the massive influx, and so we're kind of used to it. So I wouldn't say it's different, but it just does feel a little bit loose is the wrong word, but just a little bit, sort of a bit frantic, perhaps. So I understand exactly where Graham's coming from with his picture there, and it's. And why some Watford supporters would have concerns, and I think you'd be silly not to. You know, we've got JJ who hasn't made the squad.
That's injury, we think.
Well, kind of, but so I don't know. It just feels a bit peculiar, and you have to say that if you do go down the list of players that have been signed in the Pozzo era, how many have been hits, how many have been mediocre successes, and how many have been pretty instant failures. There have been a fair number who haven't made the grade.
Well, if you look at the graph that we did for the latest edition of the Watford fanzine Golden Pages, you will see a sort of representation graphically of what we thought in Jason's piece about how successful they've been.
Bottom line, though, I'm going to end it on a positive. When we announced a squad for the West Ham game, on the Man United game, when you see that team sheet, I think most Watford supporters will be happy with the team they see, and they will be happy with the bench. And really, that's the be-all and end-all. If it wasn't international break, we'd probably be talking more about who's going to start where, and we'd be excited if we use one of those newfangled apps to do a formation and a lineup. It would look great. This is a strong-looking Watford outfit, but I think Watford supporters will take an interest in the running of their club, and I think there have been, let's be honest, too many transfers that haven't worked out. Too many transfers that we've tried to send out on loan last night. So a little bit of cause for concern, but ultimately, really, it's not our business.
No, but it sort of is our business because we've been emotionally in this club for over 30 years now, Michael.
If I was Gino Pozzo and I was listening to me wittering on, I'd say, Michael, you wait until the West Ham game. Look at the team sheet. Tell me if you're happy with the team that I have provided for you to watch. And I think, as it stands, the answer would be yeah.
The thing is, though, you want to know more about the system and more about what's happening and more about their thinking and where they're going. We don't hear a lot from Gino for lots of different reasons. You know, we don't hear a lot of it, but actually we can't hear a lot of it. I'd love to know more.
We did hear from Luke, though, on Radio 5.
Yeah, but still, he didn't like... you want to know more than Luke's going to tell Radio 5 Live, and he's more than you can tell anybody that's going to get broadcast around because it's a business and it's a competitive business. Yeah, but still, the other one is our friend David Levy, the Undertaker, who will be probably the next podcast because we're off to West Ham with him. It looks random, high level... He said, high turnover, the best teams have stability, we have none. Now, I sort of on Twitter earlier when I sort of said, no, I think we've got a core that's the same. And actually, you could probably Gomez, Cathcart, Watson, Deeney, Igalo, you could have 5 of the team that got us promoted. I get what he's saying, it feels that way, but in a 25-man squad, you can have turnover. Yeah. The question is, though, and where true stability comes in, is that 11 that starts every week / 13 that are going to be your first team choices and be the first names on the sheet. That's when you have stability in a squad, and that's when I think you get true success. It's when you're flicking around the each game's 18 men that you're going to have problems.
There's 2 words I don't like in the messages we've highlighted. Graham's said guessing, and David said random. I'm not buying that for a minute. Not from Gino Pozzo, who is a businessman before he went into football. They run a successful business. Anyone who has done anything successful knows it doesn't happen by guessing or random. It's hard work, calculated decisions. Some are gambles, some come off, some don't. So whilst I accept both points, I'm not having random, I'm not having guessing.
Okay.
I'm going to put that to bed. And in terms of stability, I think I'll go back to the squad, to the matchday squad. I think we will see an excellent matchday squad for the rest of the season now. So I would kind of liken us to a speedboat, right?
Okay.
So we're a speedboat steaming down the Premier League straights, and the structure is solid. There's a good crew. People know what they're doing, know what their job is. They can make the vessel go as quick as possible, look after it, get it from A to B. Around it, lots of wake, lots of churn certainly out the back. There's lots of stuff being thrown about, and there are people, by the very nature of football, who find themselves on the periphery, and they're in that churn. They are in that sort of tumultuous area around the speedboat, sort of left in our wake, if you like. The challenge for the guys who are in the periphery is to prove to Walter Mazzari, is to prove to the senior management that they're worthy of a place in the squad, then they're worthy of a place in the team, and to make sure that they're part of that speedboat crew.
You say speed, I think of Kitchie, and I get a bit sad.
Oh, I don't. He's all right.
Thank you very much for being part of either Periscope or Facebook Live. We'll hope to try and do a few more of these. But what we've been recording on that computer over there, we will podcast and put up on Audio Boom or on iTunes later tonight. Thank you very much, Mike.
Hey, you're more than welcome.
But thank you very much, and come on, you Orns!